Unfortunately, it's that time of the year here in the Midwest and in Illinois. Car is laid up in the shop. Obviously, some things look a little different. Did a lot of reorganizing. We've had a small change of cast in here. One of the guys, the space outgrew his needs, so he ended up moving his projects to another space. So we did a deep clean of the place in preparation for some winter's work. This needs a front seal on the motor. We didn't get it quite right the first time. He's got a couple things he wants to do this winter on his SS, but I think for the most part, those two cars are basically just going to be in storage/maintenance mode, changing oil, doing all the fun stuff that nobody really enjoys doing, but has to be done. I've got a trunk full of parts in this thing, mostly for this car, some of them for the GTO. Today I'm going to be removing this spoiler, so I'll throw you guys on a time lapse here in a little bit and do that. We're going to be test fitting the Oldenburger spoiler, and we'll be looking at the differences. Obviously, in the last video you can see it just doesn't really conform to the body all that well. And while I have the trunk open, pulling parts out and pulling parts off the car, I'm going to go ahead and swap out the incandescent bulbs that are in the reverse lamps of this car. Holly recently came out with the Retro Bright series, and we'll talk about that once the time comes to replace those. But I think they may be a good bright solution to the LED reverse light conundrum I've had for a while, where I just haven't found anything that was of good quality. I'm not really a big, just buy random crap for the car on eBay. I mean, unless it's used parts or a really good deal on something that I can either refinish. I don't see any shame in, knocking somebody for buying a set of cylinder heads off eBay that they're going to send to Lloyd Elliott or something like that for an LT car or an intake manifold. But electrical stuff, or lighting stuff especially, since to me it's a safety thing, I generally like to buy good quality parts, so you replace it once, you don't have to think about it. So I am going to go ahead and start getting stuff unpacked from the trunk. We'll see what we got in store for this winter. So in here, I have obviously the wing for the SS. I have a hood liner for it, which I don't know if I'll be able to get to this winter. Got some quarter windows with really nice trim that have already been tinted for the GTO. I've had these for like a year and a half, and I just haven't put them in yet. I've also got a clutch master cylinder and a slave cylinder and a throwout bearing and a new old stock GM pilot bearing that I'm going to be putting in the GTO this winter when I move over to a McLeod clutch. Obviously, I have a set of QA1 upper and lower control arms for the car, along with all the hardware, QA1 coilover bodies, and then QA1 springs that go along with it as well. I still have yet to order the rears, because I will be converting the entire car over to coilover this winter, and get rid of the Hotchkiss springs. They're not unbearably stiff, but they're a little bit stiffer than what I was really hoping for. And also a Pro-Forged brake bolt to adjust the bias, which is a super common thing for these cars because the rears basically are just kind of hanging out in these things. So let's go ahead and get that wing unpacked, get some of the junk out of the trunk in this thing, and get right to it. Now that most of the stuff is out of the trunk, I would go ahead and open it. Obviously, there will be a pocket up here, basically, 6 inches away from the trunk latch. You will be able to look up in an ideal situation, and you will be able to see there's a stud that comes through, one nut on each side. After that, I would close the trunk so that way you don't drop your wing on your trunk when you pull it off. I'm going to go grab a heat gun really quick, and we will get this bad boy off of here. Alright, the heat gun did not work, so I have quite liberally applied some Goo Gone. As you can tell by the motion I have here, I've already started to break the adhesive, but there was some sides were double taped to try and accommodate and get that gap that bothered me on the corners right at the very edge of the deck lid. Obviously, that adhesive was top notch, so that didn't really work out. So now I'm going to wait a couple minutes for the secure. I'll probably just do this off camera because I'm going to look like an absolute monkey trying to get this fucking thing off. So I'm going to give this a couple minutes to set, do its magic, hopefully bust that adhesive up, and then I'll get back to it. After a lot of time with the heat gun and some some very, very mild solvent, a little WD-40 to soften the adhesive, playing back and forth. The wing is off. Obviously, there's still adhesive on the surface. And I noticed that the trunk was kind of scratched up, but I also forgot that my body guy, in an effort to, obviously have the car presentable, unknowingly buffed and cut all of the ceramic coating that was like 4 or 5 years old on the car anyways. So, regardless, I gotta recut and polish the car this winter. But this is super weird to look at. I have not seen an actual SS car with the correct SS deck lid with the holes for it, for the wing. I haven't seen one of these without a wing in years. So the old wing is off, so I am going to let that solvent sit there for a little bit, paint safe, thankfully, and we'll get the new wing on and test fit it and see what she do. Here we go, finally. It's a little bit tighter of a fit stud-wise. I think I may have to waller out the hole in the trunk a little bit on the passenger side just to make everything nice and reasonable. When I put it down, I don't want to stress the spoiler or flex it at all, really. I had to just a little bit to get this into the car. Obviously, it's still an aftermarket piece, so there's a small gap right here, but this is also a much thinner fiberglass material. Once it is down, it obviously hugs the trunk way better. So even here on the corner, right here, where it still needs just a little bit of finishing work, it's not too bad. That hugs the trunk pretty tight. Here's the side profile. So this is exactly what I was looking for. This is just like the Impala Studios spoiler that Rubber City Motoring had when he was still working on his 383 SS project, and he ended up getting one of these, but from an Impala Studio. So I think it was a slight alteration to it, or it may have been a direct clone. I can't remember. The only thing I do notice is that there's a small gap right here. Not terrible. If you come over to the passenger side of the vehicle, there's no gap here. So I think those holes need to be wallered out lengthways just a little bit to get it set exactly where it needs to be, because I don't believe the factory SS spoilers come all the way out here flush to the edge of the trunk. I'd have to go back and look at some old pictures or videos. But again, still, I think a way better fitting piece than the old one. And obviously it'll still need to be sealed all the way around to stop water from getting into it. But rather pleased with that. I think that's for something that was allegedly made from an original 20 to 25-year-old, however old the original piece was. Making a modern recreation by hand by a small company, that's pretty damn good. Like I said before, I think in another video, they actually do make these with a custom third brake light, so you can get it to say, Chevrolet or Impala Super Sport or Super Sport, whatever their options are. I believe the link was in the previous video. But either way, yeah, this is, once I get obviously, the fitment situation slid over here, maybe, 32nd of an inch or 16th of an inch, and get it centered where I want it to, so that way it's perfectly straight on the car. I think that's going to be pretty damn all right. So we will hopefully get this thing off to paint here the next maybe week or two. See, if we can make it fit exactly how it wants to without having to hack anything up. I don't want to destroy a deck lid. And then hopefully this will be the last time I ever have to think about pulling a spoiler off or busting out the heat gun or, dousing my entire edge of my deck lid in Goo Gone. So yeah, actually quite pleased with this. So again, this came from Oldenburg, Oldenburg Concepts. They're based out of Bloomington, Indiana. They've got other options. They do offer products, I think, for other cars. They were good to do business with. They answered all my questions and everything. So again, it's aftermarket body panels on a almost 30-year-old car. There's going to be some fit and finish work that's going to be required to be done. But, I think all things considered for the B-bodies, unless you get an original one from when these cars were new, 20, 25 years ago, I don't really think it's honestly going to get a whole lot better than this. got the trunk mostly prepped after I test fit the wing, so I need to come back and cut and buff that tomorrow. But these are the newer Holley Retro Bright. So again, these are made by Morimoto, as you can see right here. And these are, I believe, an 1157 bulb, which should be an interchange, actually a brighter interchange, for a 2057. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have these installed in the correct manner, because they are single direction. They're not like an incandescent bulb where you can just throw them in. These are requiring correct installation. So I'm going to throw one of these in, and we'll see what they look like compared to an incandescent. There we go, got the first bulb thrown in. Obviously you can tell this one's the LED, that's the standard incandescent. They make them in two options. I think this is the modern white, which is like a 5400K, something along those lines. You'd have to double check the website to be sure. Obviously it's way more white than the incandescent bulb. So very pleased with that. Unfortunately I did have a whole bunch of shit, so I got a can of electrical contact cleaner and got a wire brush out. So I got to do this side and probably clean out the socket because it's probably full of junk. Make sure that all my soldering didn't crack from being moved from when I did the sequential turn signals in the car a couple years back. And that'll hopefully be it. So we'll see what it looks like with everything, all the rears swapped over to LEDs for the reverse lamps. Hopefully it looks pretty good. Alright, just got the lighting wrapped up, so we'll go ahead and flip the lights on, the car in reverse. So these are, again, specific direction bulbs. You do have to install them a certain way. I believe the correct word is polarity. Fix that in the comments if I'm wrong. But still super pleased with these. For how cheap these bulbs are, I think I spent $20, and the fact they're made by Morimoto, which is a fairly reputable brand. Direct plug and play. Would just keep a bottle of quick disconnect cleaner nearby, or get a can of it and a small wire brush. But, so that is a wrap on the early projects. Quick stuff for the winter. All the new stuff's off getting paint before we dive into suspension work on the front and the rear, once I get the rears ordered. And I will hopefully be back with another update soon.